As we gather together, we acknowledge that the land upon which our church and homes exist is the ancestral land stolen from the people of the Shoshone Bannock, the Shoshone Paiute, Coeur d'Alene, Kootenai, and Nez Perce nations, along with many other tribes whose names have been lost in history. We acknowledge that our presence here today is founded upon the exclusions and erasures of many Indigenous peoples. With this acknowledgement, we wish to demonstrate our ongoing commitment to the work of dismantling the legacies of settler colonialism. We honor Indigenous peoples' connection to the land and support their right to sovereignty.
Good morning. Welcome to the Boise Unitarian Universalist Fellowship and our online Zoom service. We are a community gathered to nurture spiritual growth, deep connection, and faithful action for a better world. I am the Reverend Sarah Lawal, and it is my great honor to serve this beloved community.
I'm Deborah Smith, and I'm your celebrant this morning. We welcome all who join us in the spirit of curiosity, love, and justice. Whoever you are, whomever you love, whatever your life's journey, your presence is a blessing. Whether you are here every Sunday, once or twice a year, or Zooming with us this morning for the first time, we are glad you are here.
So let's take a moment in this Zoom space in our new practice of greeting one another. I invite you to switch your view to gallery view if you're not there already. And if you're able and comfortable, turn your cameras on and just scroll through and give everybody a little wave. Look and see who's joining us here. Hi, Linda, Tom, and Jeanette. It's great to see you together. Sandy Cruz, hello. I haven't seen you in a long time. And all those of you whose cameras are not on, a big hello to you as well. We are so glad that you are out there joining us this morning. It's fun to kind of scroll through and really get a good look at everybody.
We want to take a moment to welcome those newcomers among us. We know it takes a lot of courage to check out a new community, and we're so glad you've joined us today. We invite you to introduce yourself in the chat so our community can warmly welcome you, and to fill out our newcomer form. And we'll post a link in the chat so we can keep you up to date with all that is happening in our fellowship. We have a few upcoming events we want to highlight.
Of course, we are excited to welcome one another back to our beautiful outdoor sanctuary in person this afternoon for our long-awaited and postponed water communion worship experience that our worship team has worked so hard to put together. There'll be a beautiful navigation river walk of stations for you to move through. If you have water that you'd like to bring to gather for our communal holy waters, we invite you to do that as well. We hope to see you this afternoon right after worship until about 1:30. Also, our youth, our coming of age youth, grades 6 through 12. We are excited to see you in person as well today. We will be gathering here outside, and we look forward to spending some time together. And I'll remind everyone that we are beginning the exciting process of revising our bylaws. Doesn't that just thrill you to death? It does to me. And we want all of you to be invited to be part of this conversation in this process. So next Sunday, October 3rd, we'll host our first congregational conversation after worship. We have an entire bylaws revision page on our website that you can go to for more details and information.
It is our practice here at the fellowship to donate 25% of our unpledged plate offering to support our social justice ministries. For the month of September, it is the Agency for New Americans, helping refugees achieve self-sufficiency in their new lives by providing skills, education, and support. 25% of our unpledged plate offering will go to the Agency for New Americans at the end of the month. We will no longer have a special time for collecting our online offering while our services are virtual, but you can make your gift at any time by going to our website at boiseuu.org and clicking Give at the top right corner. Or you can download the brand new giving app from Vanco to make your gift anytime during the service or after it. Your checks by mail are also welcome.
Our spiritual theme for this month of September is embracing possibility. But today we're coming at this theme just a little bit differently by exploring hard things and how this pandemic has not only been one of the biggest hard things we've ever collectively or individually experienced, but it's also impacted the way we're experiencing and receiving and moving through life's challenges. How can we even access possibility, let alone embrace it while we're overwhelmed by hard things? And what possibilities emerge when we allow ourselves the time and space to just be with the hard things? We've structured today's service just a little bit differently than usual. I wanted to get into the hard things earlier to get right to the core of the theme, and then thought that ending our time together, our worship service together, with our story time for all ages and Jem's beautiful wondering questions would offer us a grounding and reflective time as we go our way in peace. So as we enter this time of worship together, let's take a moment to breathe together. Fill your body with breath. Breathe, knowing that our breath connects us to one another, to our bodies, to our planet. Our breath offers us the opportunity for stillness, to tune into our spiritual center and listen deeply to our heart's own longing. As you hear our opening poem today, I invite you to hear all of those thines and thous as a spoken blessing to the hard things in all our lives. Thou art the song of my heart in the morning. Thou art the dawn of truth in my soul. Thou art the dew of the roses adorning. Thou art the woven whole. Thine is the grace to be steadfast in danger. Thine is the peace that none can destroy. Thine is the face of the need-driven stranger. Thine are the wings of joy. Thou art the deep, to the deep in me calling. Thou art a lamp where my feet shall tread. Thy way is steep, past the peril of falling. Thou art my daily bread. Thine be the praise of my spirit uplifted. Thou art the sea to each flowing stream. Thine be the days that are gathered and sifted. Thou art the deathless dream.
Loosen, loosen, baby, you don't have to carry the weight of the world in your muscles and bones. Let go, let go, let go. Loosen, loosen, baby, you don't have to carry the weight of the world in your muscles and bones. Let go, let go, let go. Holy breath and holy name, will you ease this pain? Holy breath carry the weight of the world in your muscles and bones. Let go, let go, let go. Loose and baby, and hold and carry the weight of the world in your muscles and bones. Let go, ease this pain. Holy baby, and hold and carry the weight of the world in your muscles and bones. Let go, let go, let go. Holy baby, and hold and carry the weight of the world in your muscles and bones. Let go, let go, let go.
Each week, we light a flaming chalice, a symbol of our free faith, a beacon of welcome, of hope, a light of truth and love. We join in this lighting in solidarity and community with hundreds of other Unitarian Universalists, lighting chalices today in homes and in virtual worship services, reminding us that we are connected to one another and to a larger community of faith and love. If you have a chalice nearby, you are invited to light it with us and then hold your chalice up to the camera. Switch to gallery view to see all the chalices in our community. Then you are invited to share in the chat where your chalice is lit this morning. With our collective chalice lit in all our spaces, we offer you this call to worship.
The storm is passing over, the old hymn says. Except the storm has not passed over just yet, has it? Here, for this hour together, we rest in the eye of the storm. We gather not as a changed people, but as a changing people.
Here in the eye of the storm, the calm, common center, the place where the pressure reduces, where the winds die down, we are finding one another near and far in new ways of being together again and again and again. We are gathered not as a changed people, but as a changing people.
We gather not as a changed people, but as a changing people. Looking up the walls of the cyclone, we see towers of clouds and rain and wind held up around this hour by the forces of circling chaos, because the storm has not passed over after all. And so we gather not as a changed people, but as a changing people.
Here in the eye, the pressure goes down, the winds die down. Perhaps we glimpse the sun, comforted, even as we know that this pause is temporary. We take a moment, a breath, to join together again. We gather not as a changed people, but as a changing people.
Changing, breathing, being, knowing that this is but a moment, grateful beyond measure for this moment. Come, let us worship together.
Since that date in March 2020, when we were temporarily shut down the economy to bend the curve, I have, in this order, bought a house and moved in with my beloved, retired from a satisfying career, reached the age of eligibility for Social Security, experienced the wedding of one last grown child, brought my mother home to live with us as her disease progressed, and finally, in August, said goodbye to my dear mom, who passed away just 2 hours after my after my final visit with her. On one sweltering day in August, a group of vaccinated boofers met in our little house to celebrate her life at a memorial cocktail party. But even then, we were beginning to sense that this COVID virus was going to surge again and contribute to even more senseless death and insensible denial and division. And despite the fact that I experienced these major life events that on the Holmes-Rice stress inventory would register over 200, none of it felt real. Were I to write a memoir of this time, all these events would show up with an asterisk. It's like, oh, here's another major life event to experience, circumscribed within the overarching context of a global pandemic that half of my fellow citizens choose to ignore and which alone is making me crazy. A recent article in the Washington Post tries to get to the bottom of why this pandemic has caused so many people to feel anxious, distracted, depressed, and unfocused. We are living in a prolonged liminal state, which, according to author Cathy Milkman, exacts a psychological price because we are denied a, quote, clearly delineated fresh start moment. This prolonged liminal state is like listening to a musical piece by avant-garde artist Philip Glass. If you're familiar with his hypnotically repetitive music, you know it doesn't evolve and it doesn't resolve like the melodies we are used to. As to the importance of satisfying endings and new beginnings, Milkman adds, clearly demarcated fresh starts give us renewed motivation and help us pursue important goals. But for most of us, that clear fresh start hasn't materialized, end quote. Sadly, the virus thwarted our church community from all coming together in person to experience that clear fresh start this fall. Endings and motivated beginnings we have to make our own and vow to be fully present in the rituals and celebrations we create and in which we participate. Our Walk Through Water Communion worship service that runs from 11:30 until 2 today is our first attempt at a clear, fresh start. Your fellow congregants who make up the worship ministry team hope you will join us for this special service that we have created for you.
Walked through fire, I came out the other side. Chased desire, I made sure I got what's mine. And I continue to believe that I'm the one for me. And because I'm mine, I walk the line. 'Cause we're adventurers and heartbreaks a map. Final destination we lack. Stopped asking directions to places they've never been. To be loved, we need to be known. Finally find our way back home. Through the joy and pain that our lives bring, we can do hard things. hit rock bottom, it felt like a brand new start. I'm not the problem, sometimes things just fall apart, but I continue to believe the best things in life aren't free. And it took some time, but finally fine. 'Cause we're adventurers and heartbreaks on that final destination we lack. We stopped asking directions to places they've never been. To be loved, we need to be known. Finally find our way back home through the joy and pain that our lives bring. We can do hard things. 'Cause we're adventurers and heartbreaks and that final destination we lack. We stopped asking directions to places they've never been. To be loved, we need to be known. Finally find our way back home through the joy and pain that our lives bring. We can do hard things. Yeah, we can do hard things. We can do hard things.
Thank you, April, for that beautiful song. When I heard this song for the first time, I heard April's voice singing it. So thank you so much for sharing your voice and that song with us. Friends, it has been 562 days since the pandemic began, or since the shutdown began, rather. 562 days. 18 months. That's 76 weeks since we shut our doors and our lives turned upside down. For some, the shrinking was a welcome reprieve, a softening and a slowing down. For others, it brought upheaval and change and adaptation in wave after wave. And we just kept swimming because there was really no choice. Likely for most of us, that pendulum swung back and forth between those two extremes. And maybe on the good days, if we were one of the lucky ones, it rested somewhere in the middle. But life, as it is known to do, just kept going. A pendulum is always in motion. It cannot be stopped. And so the pendulum of our lives keeps swinging around and around, back and forth through all manner of highs and lows and everything in between. Even in regular times, life throws us all kinds of challenges and obstacles, all manner of hard things. Grief and pain and loss are part of life's natural cycles. We know this intellectually, but how we experience it feels entirely different, especially when the systems and structures and communities we've come to rely on are either breaking down or not functioning the way we are used to, like during a global pandemic that's lasted so much longer than any of us ever imagined. It all feels unreal, as Deborah expressed, and all too real at the same time. At the 1-year mark, we began to see glimmers of hope, even amidst all the grief. Vaccinations rolling out, including our teenagers. We were able to enjoy some in-person visits with family and friends whom we hadn't seen in over a year. Optimism and relief blossomed as spring came, and we could envision a coming back together of our lives and our communities, concerts in the park, and the Shakespeare Festival, restaurants fully reopening, travel resuming. We began to make plans. We were ready to see long-lost friends and comrades and live in person, live and in person, to throw our arms around one another. And we were so ready to reconnect to our spiritual community, to this fellowship. We were making plans too. We had a vision for reopening for in-person worship this month. We've had new technology installed and we're readying ourselves to joyfully launch hybrid worship services, both in person and online simultaneously, while bringing the beauty of technology into our worship space, just as we have embraced it during this virtual time. We were nervous and excited to experience this new space together, to learn and grow together, to hold hands and laugh at our imperfections, grateful to be in one another's presence again. And none of that has come to pass. Here we are, still online. Here we are in a new raging wave of COVID, especially here in Idaho under crisis standards of care. Our school districts are arguing over what seem like basic safety protocols, and some are choosing to pretend it's all over and that it should never be discussed again, leaving many teachers and families feeling abandoned, beleaguered, and overwhelmed. Families continue to fracture and divide. Relationships are politicized and strained as we find ourselves wondering, how do we love each other in the face of politicized life when any potential for grace seems lost? It is all so very hard and demoralizing. When our board downgraded our reopening levels and the worship team made the difficult decision to keep our Sunday worship services virtual, I felt something tear loose inside of me, a wave of grief that was unexpected. In part because I have found a lot of enjoyment in our virtual worship space and a lot of creativity, even amidst the challenges. That grief came as the enormity of this current reality began to set in. My gut knew it was the right thing to do, but my heart was broken. Even as members of the worship team affirmed the decision, you could see the heartbreak shared among us, even under our masks as we sat distanced in our courtyard together for the first time. None of us wants it to be this way. These are hard choices we are wrestling with every single month, weighing the data and national guidance, trying our very best to live our values of honoring our community, particularly the most vulnerable among us, while also creating spaces for us to find and re-experience that spiritual connection we so desperately need. So I wanted this service to be a space for just naming this moment, for naming all of the hard things, for allowing some space for lamenting the deep sorrow of it all. It has been hard, and it feels even harder now, more relentless as we face so much disruption and disturbing realities and feel this kind of helplessness in affecting any real change. So I'll name some of my hard things this year, echoing Deborah's beautiful reflection. Since that date in March 2020, when we temporarily shut down the economy to bend the curve, I have, in somewhat of an order, spent hours every week on Zoom and become a Zoom expert, preached to a computer screen alone, mostly alone in the sanctuary nearly every week, converted our home into a virtual classroom, watched my spouse struggle with a new arthritis diagnosis and go from highly active to nearly immobile, and then finding a middle way, journeyed with a teenager coming out, or rather into her own new identity. And of course, the kicker, I received a breast cancer diagnosis with surgery looming imminently. And just this week, I sprained my ankle to top it all off. I've noticed this wave of hard things in my own life makes me long for both deep connection and relationship with people and needing and wanting way more time alone. And I know that Deborah and I in these hard things are not alone. So many of you have also faced your own hard things, heartbreaks of life. Among us, we have faced the death of beloveds, COVID scares, or COVID itself, debilitating health crises and chronic illness, addiction, divorce, fractured family dynamics. And then there is all of that constant vigilance and risk assessment. I'm watching friends struggle with immense grief over tragic loss, and I'm feeling it deeply with them, even though I do not know all of those involved. All of these things are hard enough in life, but gathered together alongside the weight of this continuing pandemic, it all feels so very heavy and burdensome. All of this is the result of that prolonged liminal state in which we find ourselves, having been denied that fresh start moment. Our brains are on overdrive, stuck in what psychologists call surge capacity, a typical psychophysiological response to crisis moments, but which our bodies and brains cannot sustain for extended periods of time without some kind of break and reprieve. We are all exhausted. We have all experienced a collective trauma, a shock to the system, and we are feeling its effects. I'm grateful to my colleague, the Reverend Sunshine Wolf, for their video on trauma response in ministry, which I've shared widely with friends, with the staff, the board, and the Committee on Ministry, and to which I keep returning to remind myself that what I am feeling, what so many of us are feeling and experiencing, is a normal spiritual and emotional response to trauma. Perhaps these experiences are familiar to you. Intense brain fog, not being able to track what day it is or remember simple basic details or conversations, not being able to form certain words, like when your brain just goes blank, constant fatigue, even if you have slept well, moments when doing the smallest tasks feels like too much and everything takes longer than it's supposed to. More frequent feelings of depression and or high anxiety in seemingly normal moments and conditions, heightened fear and irrationality, conflict bubbling up more frequently and in unexpected ways and places. These are all symptoms of trauma, and we are experiencing that trauma in our own lives. And so perhaps some of those things are familiar to you in your own life. I know at the beginning of the pandemic, many of us were sharing articles about the psychological and spiritual toll of the moment. We could recognize that our nervous systems were living in a constant state of stress and engagement, unlike anything we may have ever experienced before. And we were finding ways to reach out and offer care and comfort to each other, to our people, to affirm that we all felt some version of this psychological overload. But now, more than a year later, that pull to get back to normal just taps us on the shoulder. And it still doesn't feel quite right. Despite more freedom to gather and convene in public places safely, none of it feels normal. Or maybe we're harboring some guilt about how much we enjoyed the quiet and the space and the slowness of pandemic life. And now we're being pushed to get back to normal. We live in a culture that pushes us to rise above it, to get through it, or to perhaps numb it out, to numb the pain or discount it in some way. We feel an urgency to fix things, do things. Perhaps we even hold conscious or unconscious expectations of ourselves and of others for some kind of perfection as a way to hold on to a little bit of control in the world and in our lives. But what we haven't really done, not in any significant way anyway, is give ourselves the permission and the space to just sit with the hard things, to feel them and cry about them and break down if we have to lament them like a communal keening. I realize only now that I have not allowed myself to fully acknowledge and feel how hard it has all been. And just now I'm beginning to feel the weight of grief settling in and tightening around me. Maybe you feel it too. What do we do with all of that? The hard things in life often get dismissed and repressed and glossed over in favor of the lighter, kinder, more beautiful things. So I invite us to give ourselves permission to welcome the hard things as evidence that we are in fact living life. That the pendulum of life is always moving, always pulling us into that full circle of new experiences. The pendulum gives equal weight and time to all of them, constant energy to all things. I know that many of us in times of despair turn to practices of gratitude and cultivating joy, seeking out community and laughter and connection. And all of that is so important and so needed. And in fact, it is next week's worship topic. But today, what if we just stayed here in the sorrow and the pain for a while together? Better still, what if we explored it fully, excavating it from deep within, bringing it to the surface, exposed and raw and real? What would that look like for you? This is what it looks like for me right now. What if that is the loosening and letting go that we heard in that centering music? Not a sweeping it away and pretending the hard things and pain don't exist, or pushing them so far down they begin to strangle us from the inside, but holding them gently at the surface, cradling them with love, allowing them equal space and honor for our attention and care. It can be very scary and vulnerable to let the hard things surface and to allow ourselves to welcome them. But that is how the healing begins. What if the path of hard things is the road less traveled? Who would you invite to join you on this journey, knowing you might need a little bit of help along the way? Because this is deep spiritual work and we don't have to do it alone. In fact, that is why we exist as a fellowship, as a religious community, a spiritual community, to love and care for each other, to journey through life together, to hold one another's hearts in times of sorrow and joy. We need this fellowship and it needs us. We exist for it and it exists for us to bring us back from the brink when we need it most. Healing will take time, beloveds. It always does. More time than we can ever imagine or think we should give it. And in the time of that healing, well, all the time really, the greatest gift we can offer each other is gentleness and grace, hearts wide open, broken open even, because that is where the holy lives. That is where that divine spark can be seen. That is where wholeness and healing begin. This is our sacred work. May we embrace it, welcome it, and cherish it together. May we never stop loving each other, loving the world, loving ourselves, and finding a way to love the hard things. May it be so. Amen. As I mentioned, this fellowship exists for us to journey through this life together, to know that we are not alone, to share ourselves with one another. And so I want to invite you into this hard thing space with me. Maybe you've already gotten there yourself as you've listened to our reflections and the words shared with you this morning. But In the chat for our joys and sorrows time, I want to invite you to name the hard things that have happened to you in this pandemic. To the degree that you are comfortable sharing them with the community, I invite you to share those in the chat with all of us. Sometimes I think it's helpful to recognize that we're not alone in figuring out these hard things and in experiencing the overwhelm of it. So let's join in this process of holding our hard things gently together, sharing them with one another and reminding ourselves that we are not alone.
I've been broken, I've been blessed. Life's so beautiful, but sometimes it's a mess. Within the chaos, there's a calm. There's peace in the eye of the storm. Even after the darkest night, the sun will rise with each new morn. Open the windows and break down the walls. Let the light shine in. Find the wholeness that was there all along, and let the healing begin. You've been weary, time to rest. Times have been the worst, they've also been the best. Hidden in the heart, there's a fire, a young within the yin. Let love light the path ahead. Lift up the lamp that shines within. Open the windows and break down the walls. Let the light shine in. Find the wholeness that was there all along, and let the healing begin. There is a balm in Gilead to make the broken whole. There is a balm in Gilead to heal the wounded soul. We've been so lost, may we be found still walking on up to higher ground. Deep in the struggle there is joy. The obstacle is the way. Let justice be our guiding star until we reach a brighter day. Open the windows and break down the walls. Let the light shine in. Find the wholeness that was there all along, and let the healing begin. Open the windows and break down the walls. Let the light shine in. Find the wholeness that was there all along, and let the healing begin.
Amen. Thank you all for sharing your hard things with one another. Thank you for opening yourself up so vulnerably to receive the blessing of this community, which is hard to really feel when you're watching on your computer screens and televisions at home, but it's here. I invite you to join me in the spirit of prayer, spirit of life and love, source of our highest longings. Remind us to hold each other tenderly in our griefs. Allow us the space to excavate within, to explore the road less traveled in our hearts, to embrace the weariness, the pain, the longing, the tears, and hold them for a while gently. To let it all become the source of healing, to find the hope and wholeness in the mess. Remind us that we can do hard things together, and that we can endure hard times that seem to endure forever because grace is possible together, because we will overcome this together. May it always be so. In the name of all that is holy, we pray. Amen.
I invite everyone joining me in carrying that energy forward a bit longer. Pull up an extra cozy blanket, grab your warm mug, and let's cozy on in as we end our time together with our Time for All Ages. I wonder how many of you have ever had a problem? A time when you had to face a hard thing that was difficult or unwelcome or harmful. Maybe you had a problem trying to learn a certain thing, like tying your shoe or doing long division. Maybe the problem was in a relationship you have, not knowing how to respond around and with your big emotions, not knowing how to make sure that other people had a say on something that impacted them. I would like to, I've got gallery view open. I'd like to see by a show of some wiggly fingers if you've ever had a problem. Everyone? Not just me? Wow, that's interesting. Do you think that's just our church community? I have a feeling that all humans everywhere face problems, something difficult to solve or overcome or minimize, because problems just don't go away. They don't just go away. Many problems like health and safety belong to the whole community, even as we feel them in our own hearts and minds and bodies. We feel the discomfort, and it's really tempting to only want to make that discomfort go away, or that fear to go away, instead of finding the energy to focus on solving the problem. It makes me think of that song, "We Shall Overcome." Deep in my heart, I do believe we shall overcome someday. What do you think it takes to overcome a problem, to face a hard thing? What does it take to sit still with our discomfort? Our story this morning is going to help us think about how we face hard things. It's called "What Do You Do with a Problem?" It's written by Kobe Yamada and illustrator May Bessam.
What do you do with a problem? And for those of you, when we get back together, you'll see that this is tagged with our green question mark sticker. This is tagged with the fourth principle. So I want us to think about our fourth principle as we listen to our story this morning. What do you do with a problem? I don't know how it happened, but one day I had a problem. I didn't want it. I didn't ask for it. I really didn't like having a problem, but there it was. Notice the shape of it and the size. Why is it here? What does it want? What do you do with a problem? I thought. I wanted to make it go away. I shooed it. I scowled at it. I tried ignoring it, but nothing worked. You can see a little bit more about where they live. They live on a coast with a big lighthouse up there. Probably lots of animals and sea creatures around. I started to worry about my problem. What if it swallows me up? Oh boy. I think that thought did to that problem. That thought made that problem bigger. What if my problem sneaks up and gets me? You can kind of see the plants around them are really raging. They're in the depths of a storm, the winds of a storm. What if it takes away all of my things? I worried a lot. I worried about what would happen. I worried about what could happen. I worried about this and worried about that. Do you see how the problem is changing? You see how the problem is taking lots of different shapes inside of it. The more I worried, the bigger my problem became. Oh, but look at this. They aren't alone. Besides them, they have some creatures. I wished it would just disappear. I tried everything I could to hide from it. I even found ways to disguise myself, but it still found me. Think it works to hide from a problem? The more I avoided my problem, the more I saw it everywhere. I thought about it all the time. I didn't feel good at all. Oh boy, the storm is really raging around them. Couldn't take it anymore. This has to stop, I declared. Maybe I was making my problem bigger and scarier than it actually was. After all, my problem hadn't really swallowed me up or attacked me. Getting started. Lots of tools around to help them. Let's see how they use their tools. I realized that I had to face it. Oh gosh. This contraption's really coming together. What do you think that contraption's going to be? So even though I didn't want to, even though I was really afraid, I got ready and I tackled my problem. Literally. This thing, I think it was a catapult. They launched themselves straight into their problem. When I got face to face with it, I discovered something. My problem wasn't what I thought it was. I discovered it had something beautiful inside. What does the problem look like now? Very different from what it was a few pages ago. My problem held an opportunity. It was an opportunity for me to learn and to grow, to be brave, to do something. What do you think they're going to do with their problem? They're holding it now. It's much smaller than it was. It showed me that it was important to look closely because some opportunities only come once. It's like they took it all the way up to the lighthouse and see how it's shining out everywhere, illuminating everything around them. So now I see problems differently. I'm not afraid of them anymore because I know their secret. How their friends are looking. Everyone's looking so much calmer now. Every problem has an opportunity for something good. You just have to look for it. The way they go on an adventure with their problem. That's amazing. I'm gonna leave it on this page. This page is gorgeous. I wonder, what problems are you facing right now? What emotions do you feel when you think about or when you work on your problem? Problems are really uncomfortable. What kinds of things help you find stillness in your discomfort instead of fighting or trying to resist that discomfort? Maybe it's a deep breath, moving your body, maybe it's getting a hug or thinking about how you can share with someone, like how we share with each other in our chat during Boys and Sorrows. May we all find the strength to overcome hard things in order to strengthen the force of love in this world. Thank you all.
Don't give up, I know you can see all the world and the mess that we're making. Can't give up and hope God will intercede. So come on back, imagine that we could get it together. Stand up for what we need to be. 'Cause crying won't save or feed a hungry child. Can't lay down and hope for a miracle to change things. So lift up your eyes, lift up your heart, singing, mercy will we overcome this. Oh, one by one can we turn it around. Maybe carry on just a little bit longer, and I'll try to give you what you need. Just want to be free, yeah. But you see, all the world is just as we made it. And until we get a new world, I got to say that love is not a weakness or a whisper. No, love is strong, and we got to get together, yeah. Gotta get, till there is no reason to fight. Mercy will we overcome this. Oh, one by one can we turn it around. Maybe carry on just a little bit longer, and I'll try to give you what you need. Mercy, will we overcome this? Oh,
come too far to turn it around. Oh, and ask too much to be a little bit stronger. Well, I want to give you what you need. Mercy, what will become of us? Oh, one by one, could we turn it around? Maybe carry on just a little bit longer, and I'll try to give you what you need.
Thank you, Will, for that beautiful music. Friends, I invite you to place your hands over your heart for our closing blessing. This closing blessing do it right here. We're going to start again, friends. All right, let's breathe. Let's hear these words from Dana Falls one more time. There is no controlling life. Try corralling a lightning bolt containing a tornado. Dam a stream and it will create a new channel. Resist and the tide will sweep you off your feet.
Allow, and grace will carry you to higher ground. The only safety lies in letting it all in, the wild with the weak, fear, fantasies, failures, and success. When loss rips off the doors of the heart, or sadness veils your vision with despair, practice becomes simply bearing the truth.
In the choice to let go of your known way of being, the whole world is revealed to your new eyes. Blessed are we all. Go in peace. And we hope to see you here in our outdoor sanctuary very soon. Thank you all for being with us for the hard things today. We do look forward to seeing many beautiful faces, even if they're just your eyes behind the mask, because we will be requiring masks for our water communion, outdoor walk for those of you who live around the corner, and approximately 2 p.m. For those of you that aren't able to make it or who are far away, who would like to stick around for virtual fellowship time, please hang out here and we'll have some breakout rooms up and going in just a few moments.